Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. If you're continuing on from podcast players, thanks for staying with us here with Benji Naesen for the recap of Vuelta Burgos Feminas stages 3 and 4. First, stage 3, not the biggest GC day, but a tough finish nonetheless, 117 Ks. It really kicks off with the Alto de las Hoyas, 3.3 Ks at 6%, but it's got a steep kicker. Oh no, it's actually pretty consistent. It gets a bit steeper at the end. But it's a false summit, then a ridge line, another little kicker, descent, then an uncategorized 4% climb of 3.3 Ks, and the finish is the Ojo Guarena, 1.2 Ks, 4.9%, but it's very irregular, the gradients. It's like 4%, then 8%, 4%, then 7%, then flat at the end. So we weren't expecting big GC gaps by any means. Just a reminder what the GC positions were going into this stage. Elise Shabby in the leader's jersey for Canyon SRAM, Nii Fisher Black and Grace Brown second and third on the same time as her, which is weird because I thought Brown had lost time the other day. Nonetheless, the interesting thing about the way GC was set up going into this stage was that none of those three riders are the ultimate leaders for their teams. Shabby, Niewiadoma would be her leader, Fisher Black, Van der Breggen would be her leader, and Brown they'd be riding for Sprat because of Lagunas de Neila in stage 4. That's just one thing to bear in mind. But how did this stage kick off, Benji, when we did manage to get live coverage?
We're good 21 kilometers in roughly. We got the start of the live coverage, and we saw an attack directly, honestly, by an FDJ rider, by Cicely to the Ludwig, and she was responded to by multiple riders, Royakkers for Liv, and we also had Fisher Black for SD Works. Now, that attack, they all seem to be working together. We saw that the Royakkers was taking the front on the climb as well. This was all on that Alto de las Hoyas, pretty much near the top. And we also had Fisher Black taking a few turns on that. Uttrup Ludwig did the initial attack, stayed a bit to the back just after that, and then started working as well. But to be honest, that attack didn't really go too far because the group behind was starting to pace behind those three riders. And eventually they got caught back. But FDJ wasn't ready yet. They were like, let's try again, but not with Uttrup Ludwig because, well, you can't just attack every single second with the same rider. So Evita Muzic, young French rider on their team, decided to try and make a very similar move, and Stultins was one to react on that attack. And unfortunately for those two, they stayed away for a tiny bit, but eventually they got caught again. And I think we saw multiple other attacks in the last 15 kilometers, including one from, I think, first of all, Taylor Wiles. I think Caroline Canwell was responding to that one, but she also responded to the attack afterwards, which was from Elise Shabby. But eventually, well, Shabby also got caught going into the last uphill section, really, didn't they?
Well, Shabby, she kept attacking. She did tomorrow as well in stage 4. She was very aggressive, perhaps knowing, okay, I'm not good enough to hang with the best on Lagunas de Neila, so she's trying to gain as much time as possible. Even that final climb, she's probably a little bit worried about. And yeah, it kind of did affect, though, her ability to compete for the win at the end of this stage. We then had Grace Brown, who's up there on GC, pretty much sacrificed her chance for the stage win. I would have really liked to see what she could have done going for the stage win herself, because this climb, 1.2 Ks, 5%, yes, it's a bit, undulating, but sorry, I've never seen Sprat in the last little while have the punch to beat Niewiadoma and co on this finish, and I think Brown might actually, if there was a bit of a lull, she's someone that's difficult to bring back. We saw that the other day. Anyway, she was smashing it. They've caught Shabby. We know the peloton's going to win the stage win. The question is who? Someone would need a punch at the end, but still it's pretty flat at the end. They need to be able to maintain that sprint. And the group was very, very large as well. So it was, Grace Brown from like 600 meters all the way to almost 150, 200 meters to go. They got a left-hand bend. Niewiadoma kicks up out of her wheel, the GC leader for Canyon SRAM. She's marked by Ludwig. I couldn't see anywhere Van der Breggen at all, Benji. It was actually the riders we were expecting. to be right there weren't on the wheels of Ludwig and Niewiadoma, especially Van Vleuten, etc. So they weren't really contesting the sprint. Longoborghini is on Ludwig's wheel, and Ludwig kicks out of the wheel to the inside of Niewiadoma, and we see as it changes to the overhead shot, she gaps Elisa Longoborghini, and the speed difference you could see, she is going to win that stage. She's clicked it up into a big, big gear, and she's sprinting to the line with clear air behind her. Almost, she actually gaps the peloton just about Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig, and she wins her first ever World Tour race for FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine Futuroscope. Big win for her. She won 10 races. She won Giro dell'Emilia. Similar finish. Similar finish. She just bided her time, the 25-year-old, and great to see her win one of the most popular riders in the male or female peloton. Very, very well known. And we were happy to see her win and to be beating the best as well. It's not like Emilia where great win, but here she's beaten Niewiadoma, Longoborghini, Van der Breggen, all the names, Vollering, Garcia, Van Vleuten, Mulman. So she's beaten the best of the best, gapped even some of them. What do you think of her, Benji, Cecilia Uttrup Ludwig? Do you think she's always... I just think she is a better stage racer, and she just is hampered by the lack of these sort of races on the calendar. Personally,
yeah, I think as well. I think the stage did suit her a bit, but I wasn't really seeing her as the all-out favorite on this terrain because, like, we saw in Emilia that she had a kick, but that kick happens after a very steep section on the Bologna climb, whatever it's called. But here we've got a finish that is not necessarily the steepest leading up to a hilly sprint. So I was not necessarily expecting her to be coming out of this with gapping the other riders. I was honestly not even looking at her as like the favorite to finish this. So I'm really impressed by the kick she had on this kind of finish. I'm really happy for her because quite honestly, it's amazing that she's finally got that W after so much trying and getting so close so much, but she never really had that finish to try and beat the rider that she's with and so forth. And now she basically just punched away on the final sprint. So really wonderful performance. And, she was moving up in GC as well accordingly because I'll let you read through the GC in a second.
I've already pretty much read the top 10 results. Here's the GC, though. Nee Fischer-Black moving up, and Shabby losing the leader's jersey. So Fischer-Black goes into stage 4 wearing the leader's jersey, same time as Grace Brown, 2 seconds ahead of Niewiadoma, Longoborghini, Ludwig, and Van der Breggen. 5 seconds back is Vollering, Mulman, Paladin, and Anna Santesteban. Van Vleuten as well on 5 seconds at 12th on GC. So SD Works had 4 riders in the top 10 on GC going into the final stage, the famous climb up to Lagunas de Neila, where we've seen Sosa win a couple of times, Miguel Angel Lopez as well back in the day. It's a 121k stage. Unfortunately, live coverage only started with 4Ks to go, which was really, really disappointing, actually.
So sad.
But yeah, here's the profile in full. It's a few roller climbs beforehand, but then it's all about the final climb, 12K, 6.3%, but it's a fake news climb. The first 9Ks are, nothing. There's 1K at 8%, but the rest are like 4 5%, including a flatter section in the middle. And the last 3Ks are 9.7, 9.5, 11.3, including 16% pinches. So, I mean, we did get the main part of the race, but the live coverage starts, Benji, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's chaos. There's Spratt up the road, the leader for Bike Exchange, 32 seconds back from Fischer-Black on GC. We've got a group in the middle, and we've got SD Works pacing behind. I think there was Alrud as well in the Amanda Spratt group, and
Shackley as well for SD Works.
That's correct, yeah. Shackley, who was pacing in Group 3, chasing behind?
Well, it was SD Works, like you said, and it was one by one. So Mullen Basio was pacing for an entire while. Then it ended up being Vollering as well, pacing in that group. Finn Fischer-Black. No, that's the wrong Fischer-Black. Nee Fischer-Black is the other way around. Nee Fischer-Black was also pacing for a bit, but she actually got dropped by her own team, basically pacing on the climb itself. So it looked like they completely gave up about 4 kilometers from the line on the classification of Fischer-Black and decided, we got to fix this,
it
because
was savage.
Alrud in the breakaway was going to take the jersey if they didn't catch them, or at least didn't close down the gap a bit more. So they had to put some pacing on going, because Shackley in the breakaway, she obviously sat on, because if she's working with Alrud, then Alrud might get the jersey that they're trying to win. And Shackley is not as good as a climber as Alrud, in my honest opinion. And that was clearly seen by the fact that I think she was one of the first ones to drop, which means that perhaps she dropped out of not being able to follow, or they called her back to try and help out with the people behind. Kind of a satellite rider kind of deal. And eventually, I think Alrud and the rally rider in that group that I forgot the name of.
Koppenberg.
Yes, Koppenberg, my bad. They ended up riding alone, but the gap was like a minute 20 with 4 kilometers to go. I was like, a minute 20, that's a lot. But then again, it gets very steep here. So if they keep on smashing the pedals with the entire SD Works team at the front of that group, then this is probably going to get won by the elite group behind. And slowly but surely that evolved, and those SD Works riders were spent one by one until we had Vollering as the last women ahead of Anna van der Breggen. Van Vleuten in the wheel. We saw that Cecilia Tripledui was having severe trouble following and suddenly cracked. She was unable to follow.
Lamborghini gone.
Exactly. And eventually that led to Vollering, Van der Breggen, and Van Vleuten, all three, up the road.
It was like Benji, almost like the two Schlecks and Contador, or Richie Port with Froome, with one other rider. It was crazy. Vollering was absolutely smashing Lagunas de Neila. And Benji and I, we probably underrated her a little bit the other day. We were like, Vollering, just a more of a Vos type character. But today, legit climber we saw today. And if she was riding her own race, who knows how well she could have done. She seemed to like riding a steady pace. Like if there was accelerations, she'd drop back a little bit. But then when people slowed up, she would catch back up. And that's what happened. She eventually dropped off. Van der Breggen's pacing then with Van Vleuten on the wheel. And the GC situation really defines how this was raced. Because Van der Breggen was 3 seconds ahead of Van Vleuten on GC, which I think really changed things. It meant that Van der Breggen rode defensively. She just set her own pace, like we see her do on the Mur de Huy, years and years and years, setting her own pace on the steep sections. No one can attack off that pace. Van Vleuten, invisible discomfort behind her, needing to make up. I assume there were stage bonuses, Benji, although I can't see them in the line. I can't see any.
I don't think they have them, because I think yesterday Grace Brown was surprised that there were no stage bonuses, and yeah.
Right. Okay, well, with no stage bonuses, that means that Van Vleuten to win GC would need to gap Van der Breggen by more than 3 seconds. So that's why Van der Breggen then is running that pace. She's drop Vollering, but then she slows up a bit. She sees, okay, I can do my own thing. Van Vleuten's not going to attack me. Vollering catches back up, starts pacing again. They catch back up to Alrud and Koppenberg, the last remnants of the breakaway. Spratted attack, then got dropped. And then Vollering keeps pacing for a bit, eventually drops off, and then it's Van der Breggen for the last, 800 meters, 700 meters, pace. We see Van Vleuten trying to click it into a big gear in the last 100 meters, thinking about the final sprint. Okay, how is she going to at least go for the stage? And she mustn't have felt as good as Van der Breggen. Benji must have been a fierce pace, because she needed to have attacked even earlier to gain those 4 seconds she needed to win GC. Eventually attacks Van der Breggen in the last corner with 50 meters to go. Van der Breggen, who's in quite a light gear, actually immediately kicks up out of the saddle and beats Van Vleuten in the final sprint to take the stage pretty comfortably, actually. And here's the final top 10 results from the stage. 4 Dutch women in the top 5. Van der Breggen first, Van Vleuten same time. Vollering third. Unbelievable performance from her, 20 seconds back. Royakkers fourth. Koppenberg is fifth. Alrud sixth. Ludwig seventh. Moolman eighth. Grace Brown ninth, Benji, beating Amanda Spratt by 8 seconds. Spratt rounding out the top 10. Nuviadoma and Longo Borghini dropping quite a lot, actually. So the final GC is pretty interesting. Van der Breggen first, Van Vleuten second. It's Koppenberg and Alrud have moved up, Benji, to 4th and 5th on GC from being in the break. Grace Brown drops down 5 positions. We wonder if there'd been stage bonus. If there'd been stage bonuses, and if there had been, and if Bike Exchange Rover Brown yesterday on stage 3, she probably would have finished 4th. But anyway, she's 7th, Moolman 8th, Royakkers 9th, Nuviadoma 10th. So maybe a bit of a surprising GC there with Brown up there in Kloppenburg and Allerud. But what do you make of this race overall, Benji? Any other thoughts from the Lagunas de Neila stage as well? Do we need more of these sort of finishes?
I really enjoyed the race, to be honest, but I have to be honest. If I tune into a race and it's 4.7 kilometers to go from the second that I tune in, my attention on it tunes off a bit, and that's sad because I was really hyped about the Lagunas de Neila finish, and we basically got 4 kilometers of climbing. So I'm genuinely disappointed about it, and it did turn me off for the watching experience. And it was apparently because they miscalculated the average speed to about 32 kilometers, which is a pretty hefty mistake, I'd say. But in the end, I guess it's a human mistake, so I don't really want to curse the person that accidentally miscalculated, because I probably made some math mistakes in my life as well. But nonetheless, it does highlight the fact that we only got a limited amount of footage every time, and every second it goes wrong, to the sense that it reduces the watching experience, then it really sucks. And it's hard to discuss it as well, because I'd love to talk about how a team is taking on the full Lagunas de Neila climb, and how the attacks of the people that were in front happened and where they attacked and so forth. But the only thing we can base it off is tweets. And to be honest, from tweets themselves, I have a hard time imaging what happened.
It's really hard to draw firm conclusions about, okay, what will Bike Exchange trying to achieve by sending Sprat up the road, etc. I mean, we can guess, but Benji and I both like to actually watch what's going on, because often we draw different conclusions to what maybe people, you're having that extra human error or different point of view, subjectivity, saying what's happening. But that's different when it's like, okay, in group is yada, 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 40 seconds. That's helpful, etc. But yeah, it makes it really tough to make a podcast. And that's why we had to combine these two podcasts, because we can't we're not going to make an 8-minute, 6-minute podcast each day for each stage. And we're already trying to, I don't know. I don't want to complain too much. But then again, there is a requirement for 40 minutes or more of footage for each Women's World Tour race. And sure, they miscalculated, but geez, it was a big miscalculation, and it was and I'd want to know, what's the marginal cost difference? Like, you have to get all the equipment out there, you get all the systems set up for 20 minutes. Like, how much extra does it cost to do it for a bit longer? If it's all being streamed by OTT to GCN or Eurosport, they already have to say to the commentators they got doing it, paying them for however long, like, they're already got their afternoon set up and they've booked in, this is what I'm doing today. I don't think it really makes much difference to them. And I'm sure GCN would like to have more footage, not their fault, or Eurosport, to have 2 hours or whatever. I think. What do you mean?
Could it not be that there's the broadcasters are not necessarily buying up the larger broadcasting, or am I just assuming something random here?
I don't know. It depends whether they're paying for Vuelta Burgos or not. The thing is, maybe they are for Burgos because it's a standalone race, so it doesn't get bundled. I know with Flanders Classics, the women's gets bundled and they don't make any money off it. But Burgos is a standalone event. I assume they're paying for it. Whether they're demanding 2 hours of footage or not, I don't know. I'm sure if they funded it, then the host broadcaster or the race organizer would be happy to show it as well. So I don't know, but I'd be keen to see a little bit more. It's tough with the Giro one as well. One would think resources are stretched a little bit thin. But anyway, it was a great race. Good to see a proper women's stage race. I know we like the Healthy Aging Tour, but it's great to have one with some proper nasty climbs in it and some varied terrain. Vanderbreggen, I can't believe she's retiring next year. Pretty crazy. The next women's race is coming up. I'm trying to see on the calendar, Benji, well, to watch out for. We've got La Course. La Course, the next one, is the next one-day race, 26th of June. So we've got about a month until the next women's one-day race, and then another month until San Sebastian. I think the next stage race is the Ladies Tour of Norway and Simac Ladies Tour.
When's Giro Rosa again? Because it's now not World Tour anymore, but I think it's somewhere in the middle of July, start of July. True. Something. I remember that vaguely. But anyway, it's a race we're looking forward to as well. Like, we try and cover all male and female World Tour races. We'd love to do more, but I think if we would, then we'd stretch ourselves so thin we might not even survive the World Tour ones. So I think that what we're working with is a pretty good thing, and sometimes we might make exceptions, but I think it's best that we for now keep it to the kind of races that we're following, because we need to make sure that the content is qualitative and not only quantitative,
Exactly. All right, that's enough from us today. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. And if you did, leave us a like or down below, or hit us up with some questions on Twitter. There have been a few Sleepy Giro stages at the moment, so we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have through hashtag LRCP or the comments on the YouTube videos. But that's all from us. We'll see you with stage recaps tomorrow. Ciao.